Hello, and welcome to another edition of MLB Pro Happy Hour. I am your anonymous GM. Before we dive in to tonight's Happy Hour, a thank you to Brenton, a thank you to Matt Wells and Cole for taking the broadcast podcast MLB Pro discussion torch from me there for here, frankly, a while now. I've been slacking, so much appreciated to everyone else who has been filling the void. We've had half of a season of baseball fly by us. It seems like just yesterday was the middle of the offseason. We had, Shohei Ohtani deciding between 6, 8, 10 teams, whatever it was, determining where he would be playing. And Ohtani ultimately, of course, decided in Arizona. We had free agency. We had big trades over the offseason. We have new GMs in new places. Anyways, we've had a lot of baseball. And I feel like it's fitting to begin with what we just had, the All-Star Game. The 2019 MLB Pro All-Star Game took place yesterday. The American League got the best of the National League 8-2. The American League got things going early. Third inning of the game, Texas Ranger Arturo Moreno drove in Cleveland Indian Cade Cahill to get the first run of the game in. Just an inning later, the American League struck again, first on a wild pitch, which scored Bryce Harper, of course, of the Toronto Blue Jays. And then later in the at-bat, Charles Cutler hit a 2-run homer, which scored fellow Angel Caleb Cowart. The American League led 3-0. The National League got on the board for the first time in the fifth with a 2-out run-scoring single off the bat of San Francisco Giant Joe Panik. This plated Colorado Rocky Carlos Correa. It's going to be the only time all season long we see Rockies and Giants celebrating a play in which both benefited, of course, the Buck-Holtz rivalry, which we're going to get in here plenty later on. Sixth inning, RBI single by Cade Cahill and Aaron Uriarai pushed the American League lead back to 6-1 en route to an 8-2 victory. It was a 2-for-2 day at the plate with an RBI and a run scored for Texas Ranger Alfredo Silverio. Silverio walked away with the MVP award. This came just days after the league chat, of course, brutally suggested that Silverio had no business being in the All-Star game. But everything that took place with the All-Star voting and all the troubles Matt had with that, Silverio did make the game, and he walked away MVP. Danny Holtzen, no surprise, American League likely Cy Young winner. He picked up the All-Star Game win. Los Angeles Dodger Tom Robson picked up the loss. There were almost 50,000 fans in attendance to watch MLB Pro's best. MLB Pro continues to thrive with fans, only bringing the very best baseball to the very best fans in the sports universe. Again, it's been a terrific first half of the season. We've had a lot. We've had 3 players hit 3 home runs in a game. 2, I think we could have seen coming maybe before the season, and Mazutaro Oyashi and Nomar Mazara of the Angels. The third, Danny Espinosa. The high-priced Danny Espinosa hit 3 home runs in a game. Let's not forget that. We've had 1 cycle on the year back in April. Josh Wilcox of the Mets hit for the only cycle of the season. How about the moment of the first half? Could have been last week. July 4th, America's Day, MLB Pro, baseball all day, fireworks everywhere. Porter Curran, in his last start with the Chicago White Sox, he was perfect through 9 innings. There was one problem. The White Sox didn't score a run either. The game went to the 10th. The White Sox sent Porter back out there. He lost the perfect game. He lost the shutout. And he ultimately took the loss. That was Porter Curran's last start as a Chicago White Sox member of the Chicago White Sox, of course, traded days later to the Atlanta Braves. We've added new GMs. We've seen old GMs take on new challenges. Rivalries everywhere, whether in the American League with Rocky and Aiden, the Mariners and the Angels, the brotherly Buck-Holtz rivalry in the NL West, the Dodgers and Giants battling it out in the NL West. Could the NL East delve back into Brenton versus Bruce if the Mets can make a run here in the second half? We have up-and-comers in the Miami Marlins, prime position to make a run. We have Scott versus the rest of the National League, because no one ever gives Scott any chance with the Cincinnati Reds for whatever reason. So Scott proved everyone wrong there. All in all, tremendous first half of the season. And I want to take some time now to look back at what we've had happen. I want to take a look to see what is going to happen here in the second half. If anyone has any questions, comments, shoot me a PM in chat. I'm going to try to keep the PM, the sidebar open better in Slack while I look over what I have, some of my notes. So I'll try to at least take questions or comments as we go. Anyways, let's start over in the American League. And when we start in the American League, let's start in the American League East with the best record in the American League, the best record in baseball. The Toronto Blue Jays at 58-33, a 6.5 game lead on the Tampa Bay Rays, who currently have a half-game lead on the Texas Rangers for the final wildcard spot in the American League. The Boston Red Sox are having a much improved year, yet they still sit 42-48, 15.5 games out. So we have a two-team race here in the American League East. The Baltimore Orioles, we're going to get into them, 39-52, 19 games out. And Rhett Parker in his first year in New York with the Yankees, 37-52, 20 games out of first place. But we begin at the top. The league's best team, best record, one of the most aggressive GMs in the league in Mitch Bannon, the prize of Canada, the team that has now stolen the attention from the world champion Toronto Raptors. That would, of course, be the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays' offseason was adventurous, bringing in Giancarlo Stanton. And that wasn't where they stopped. It's late May. The Blue Jays were already in first place, and they struck. Gary Sanchez from Kansas City, premier catcher bat last year in Kansas City, slugged, 50 homers, was acquired for 22-year-old starting pitcher Casey Mize, 28-year-old left fielder Edwin Rogers, catcher Rob Brantley, and catcher Jacob Realmuto. If that was step one, and step one, I think, caught the league by surprise. Step two, a day later, really caught the league surprise, and that was the day, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays acquired Esteban Hernandez from the Milwaukee Brewers. Yes, it did cost the Blue Jays some very, very, very valuable pitching prospects in Pedro Cuevas and Cody McCutch, but it gave the Blue Jays a lineup as good as any, and I'm talking Rockies, I'm talking Angels, I'm talking anyone. The top of that order with Hernandez, Harper, Stanton, it's lethal. Of course, here we go on Sanchez. I knew I had some notes on him. Hit .321 last year in Kansas City. Hasn't been the same, though, this year. Hitting just .223 in the first half. Does have 15 homers, but, of course, well below the 52 homer outburst of last year. Offensively, Toronto's the second, really right there with the Angels, even though they rank second in runs scored, despite being 8th in batting average and slugging. Don Winston slowly picking things back up after starting the year hitting just .232 with 2 homers and 56 April at-bats. Winston hit 6 homers in May, 8 homers in June, while seeing his batting average rise. In a lot of ways, the 2019 Toronto Blue Jays have mirrored the 2018 Cincinnati Reds. Unfortunately for Mitch and for Blue Jay fans, that means it's a team riddled with arm injuries. The top 4 in the rotation, really solid. We're talking Justin Verlander, Pat Swain, Kevin Nicholas, and the more recently often injured Chris Farrell. Tommy Hanson was brought in not too long ago, but it hasn't really worked out so far. Hanson's 0-5 with an ERA of 6.53 and 41 1/3 innings pitched with the Blue Jays. When you have a lineup like the Blue Jays, when you have a 1 through 4 in the rotation like the Blue Jays have, you have a very strong bullpen. You have a win-now mentality and a GM who's willing to do anything. Could the Blue Jays here be a target for either Mark Appel or Josh Johnson? We'll get into Appel and Johnson when we talk the Braves and the Tigers, but could the Blue Jays be in a market for a big-time pitcher? They just brought in someone like Sixto Sanchez, who was a $5 million man in the international market in 2018. He dominated the 2018 Winter Developmental League, 21 strikeouts, 6 walks, and 27 1/3 innings pitched. He's got a large arsenal. He's a high-stuff guy. We've already seen Pedro Cuevas again, Cody McCutch dealt. Could the Blue Jays dive back into their bag of tricks one more time and pull out the guy who can match a Danny Holtzen, who can match a Rod Swift, a Sean Stevens, a Ryan Copeland, a Kevius Sampson, a Masaharu Tanaka, whoever the Twins throw, a Steven Strasburg in Tampa Bay, or even if they were to get to the World Series of if they didn't get Mark Appella, Trevor Bauer from Atlanta, a Walker Buehler, Lance McCullers, Clayton Kershaw, Dave Smith, the plethora of arms in Colorado, Tim Lincecum, Zach Greinke in San Francisco. It could be what separates the Blue Jays if they were able to acquire that top of the rotation arm. In second place right now, of course, and in a playoff spot is the Tampa Bay Rays. They begin the second half with a very favorable schedule. Just 3 games. It happens to be a series in Toronto of their next 19 games. Again, only 3 of their next 19 are against with a team with a winning record. Things pick up heavily in August. So this next 3-week stretch is critical for Tampa Bay. In addition to the 3 games they have coming up here in the next week with Toronto, they actually have 13 games against the Jays the rest of the way. They also, unfortunately for them, have 17 games against teams not named Toronto who already have 50 wins at the All-Star break. So that is 30 games the rest of the way against 50-win teams at the All-Star break. Things are going to pick up here for Tampa Bay. Like Toronto, the Jays are dealing with quite a few injuries. They recently lost Brian Mattis to the season with a torn labrum. The last week was a brutal, and I'm talking brutal, week for outfield injuries. We first saw Justin Upton, then we saw Steve Winter, then we saw Kyle Parker go down. So again, rotation, good. Lineup, pretty good. What about the bullpen? Will Mac Davis be replaced in the bullpen? He's a specialist versus righties, but he's being killed by right-handed batters. Right-handed batters are hitting .323, slugging .661 with 7 homers in 62 at-bats against Mac Davis. If the Blue Jays the Rays want to get to that back end of the bullpen in Felipe Almonte and Jordan Walden, they might need one more arm to get them there. There are a lot of questions, though, about the Rays. Less about this year and more about the next few years. Justin Upton, as we just talked about, injured, has a player option at the end of this year for $13.5 million in 2020. Enrique De Leon, recently returning, or soon to be returning from injury, he will be entering the final year arbitration, looking at north of $10 million. Lucas Giolito, the young ace, entering his final 2 years of arbitration. Again, we're looking at well north of $10 million a year. Likewise, Steve Winter, 2 more years of arbitration, $10+ million. Rodrigo Espinosa entering his final year of arbitration, and Felipe Almonte's vesting option could see him entering free agency at the end of the year. Do the Rays, do they look to attack this window that might be closing? Are they willing to start paying players here moving forward? Do one of these names get dealt here at the deadline or early in the off-season? Things in Tampa Bay financially are always up in the air. Lots of players expiring or coming to an end and entering free agency right around the same period. Things will be interesting there in Tampa Bay. Moving on to the Boston Red Sox, year after winning an MLB Pro franchise low 61 wins. They sit just 6 games under 500 at the break. It has been a good season in Boston for Brett Jackson. How will the recent trade of Frank Burt look long term? Burt, a young offensive catcher, was dealt to Kansas City, and it brought back Jacob Realmuto and Jack McNeil from Kansas City. McNeil reminds me a lot of Don Winston. Will a new team solve his swing like Winston's move to Toronto solved his? Top prospect Dave Allen called up in June. How will he do? He's hitting .280 so far. He's showing some power, 17 strikeouts, 9 walks, and 107 at-bats. So Boston fans are getting the first look at the young shortstop who will man shortstop for likely the long-term future in Boston. Other prospects, they're not too far off in Boston. Will number 2 prospect Ronald Stanton, currently at AAA, will he come up? Number 2 overall pick in the 2019 draft, Sawyer Cleveland, is hitting very well in the low minors. He's hitting .300 with 6 homers in his first 25 pro games. 2018 top 10 pick Drew Lock, he's dominating at AA Portland. Will we see 24-year-old Sydney Battleship English down the stretch? Boston, I don't think anyone's going to expect to see them buy, but how about sell? Keep an eye on Dominic Brown. Huge contract. Boston doing everything in their power to upset him. If Boston's willing to eat a lot of that salary, would a winning team be willing to risk Dominic Brown being productive for them? Will we see pitchers Neftali Feliz or Dan Runzler be moved? Both are players that could help winning teams. Moving on in the AL East, we have the Baltimore Orioles. Turmoil. I think that's all we can say. The Andy Puckstadt front office regime came to a tumultuous end here this season, and immediately Drew Hastings turned things around. The Orioles were 15-11 in Hastings' first month at the helm of the Orioles. We're talking a trade piece here. Before we get to the big one, let's talk a smaller one. Anthony Rizzo, power bat, could be attractive trade piece. A modest $12.5 million owed next year if Baltimore eats some of that. He is a bat that could provide crucial power at the corner infield position or DH for any team there. I think the big piece is the more recently discussed in the rumor mill, Brady Aiken. He's 3-11, 4.94 ERA in 17 games started. He's already allowed 13 homers this year. Why is that important or of interest? Well, because he only gave up 16 in 173 innings pitched last year. He has turned things around more recently. In June, a 1.64 ERA in 22 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts, just 9 walks. He signed to a very team-friendly deal through 2024. What can be brought in for Brady Aiken? Again, I think we start with high stuff, team-friendly contract, signed long-term. He could be the preeminent favorite for any team out there not named Mark Appel. And I'm not sure that Brady Aiken wouldn't be more popular for some teams than Mark Appel anyways, because Mark Appel's a free agent to be. Mark Appel, terrific year. Brady Aiken, not so terrific, but Brady Aiken younger, signed longer. I'm intrigued. I'm also intrigued by Gabriel Flores. High-end relief pitcher, 80 strikeouts and 56 2/3 innings pitched. Lefties are hitting a mere 153 off of Flores. We're talking dominant relief pitcher, $2.5 million each of the next 2 seasons. He's not really helping the Orioles a ton. Could he be on the move? How much could he warrant? You compare it to a last year... Amont was moved by Oakland, brought in a hefty price from Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay also brought in Jordan Walden from the Angels. Hefty price was paid. Every year at the trade deadline, relief pitchers are valuable. Gabriel Flores could be that this year. Could the Orioles' number 2 prospect Nick Senzel get some time up at the end of the year? He recently turned 24 and is having a tremendous year for AA Bowie. 15 homers, 29 doubles, 286 average, 371 on-base percentage, and a 515 slugging percentage. Rounding out the American League East, we have Rhett and the New York Yankees, where I'm just going to say this. Anything is possible. Don't be shocked. Don't be surprised. Anything is possible. If I had to guess, though, there's one name that I think will be dealt by the deadline that I'm confident in saying will be dealt by the deadline. Tommy Joseph. 27-year-old catcher, first baseman, really a DH. Could provide plus power for an American League contender. Perfect for a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, as we talked about earlier. A team whose window with its core right now could benefit greatly from someone like Joseph, could push them into stronger ground in what's going to be a fierce American League wild card race. And that's the American League East. Let's now take a look over at the Central. where the Cleveland Indians hold a 3.5-game lead on the Minnesota Twins. The Twins at 49-40, the Indians at 52-36. The White Sox finished the first half at an even 500, 44-44, with the Tigers and Royals rounding out the bottom of the Central and the bottom of the American League. The Tigers at 34-54, the Royals at 33-58. Beginning, of course, with the Cleveland Indians, we're talking the American League best 3.21 team ERA, the American League best starters ERA, the fewest runs allowed. All Cleveland Indians. Rod Swift, the number one Major League MLB Pro prospect at the start of the 2018 and 2019 season, coming off of a AAA championship and Pitcher of the Season award. Some said, oh, he's not ready for the big leagues. Well, he is. In 11 starts spanning May and June, Swift has thrown 70 innings pitched, struck out 73 batters, 25 walks, less than an hit an inning, and only 10 earned runs. 10 earned runs through May and June, 70 innings pitched. Fellow rookie Sean Stevens, teammate of Rod Swift last year on AAA Columbus's International League title team, like Swift, began the year as a top 50 prospect. A strong showing in spring training. Like Swift, some said, oh, he needs some more grooming at AAA. Well, like Swift, Stevens has proved those people wrong. He is proven to be a pitcher that Pirate fans will long regret giving up when they acquired Anthony Rizzo. A pitcher that is going to be a front-of-the-line starter with Rod Swift for years to come. The rotation, of course, is joined by David Price, who was acquired in a trade from Toronto for Nick Pickett, a deal that I think has worked well for both teams. Offensively, the Indians currently are being carried by one Miguel Andujar, 273, 15 homers, his second full season in the Bigs. He had 13 homers and 523 at-bats last season, already with 15 here at the break. He leads American League third baseman in average, on-base OPS, walks, and runs scored so far on the year. Perhaps I think the favorite player amongst Indian fans, though, has to be outfielder Cade Cahill, and for one glaring reason. Cahill was acquired from the Minnesota Twins in a trade for Danny Espinosa. Cade Cahill was a Minnesota Twin that the Minnesota Twins sent to the Cleveland Indians. He's now been a staple at the top of the Indian lineup. He's terrific in high-leverage situations, hitting .353 with an on-base percentage of .441, 4 homers, and 21 RBIs in high-leverage situations. In the outfield, well, he's gold. 240 chances in center field, 0 errors, 8 assists. Where is the concern with the first-place Cleveland Indians? Well, I think there's one big one. They're 10-16 versus left-handed pitching. Why is this a concern? Well, let's take a look ahead to potentially the playoffs. Kevin Nicholas, left-handed pitcher, Toronto. Ryan Copeland, left-handed pitcher, Angels. Danny Holtzen, left-handed pitcher, Mariners. Justin Hooper, left-handed pitcher, Seattle Mariners. Reginald McMillan, left-handed pitcher, Texas Rangers. All of the elite contenders in the American League have left-handed pitchers that they can throw once, potentially twice in a series against the Indians. If the Indians don't get better against the lefties, it's going to be a problem. What's the good news for the Indians, though? They have a deep stable of prospects. We're talking pitching prospects Julio Rosado, pitching prospect Kevin Gary, pitching prospect Brody Matthews. We're talking premier left side of the infield pieces in Jonathan India, Derek Fletcher, and Will McCoy. Will Cleveland make a push for a power-hitting first baseman? Could someone like Tommy Joseph and his poor defense fit in? Could Anthony Rizzo fit in? We're going to go over some more first basemen later, but just a couple names already that I think are worth keeping an eye on for Cleveland. The second-place Minnesota Twins acquired Nathan Eovaldi, who suffered from poor defense in New York, and of course Nolan Arenado from the Cincinnati Reds earlier in the season. The top half of the lineup remains as good as any. Earlier we talked about the premier top of the Toronto lineup. We'll get to the Angels lineup later, but we're talking Martin Lopez, Daniel Fields, Gary Copeland, Miguel Sano. 1 through 4 is as good as any. The problem for Minnesota this year, their bullpen ERA ranks 11th in the American League. Their pitchers rank 14th in the American League in strikeouts. With these other elite offenses in the American League, can a team that doesn't strike out enough pitchers get through the American League? Jean-Luc Raymond has been terrific, but they haven't gotten much from Dylan Betances, Wilmer Font, or Matt Barnes in the bullpen. Will Barnes stay in the bullpen, or could he go back to the rotation with recent talk of Kevia Sampson being demoted? What is interesting is, like the Rays and Jays having a lot of games remaining, the Twins have 13 games with the Indians left to go. Their final 10 games of the year against either the Royals or the Tigers. If this is close down the stretch, the edge goes to the Twins for that very reason. We know one thing, though. One thing is very clear. Rocky Cook and the Minnesota Twins don't just want to beat the Cleveland Indians and Aiden Dunbar. They want to decimate the Cleveland Indians. They will do whatever it takes to improve their team to give themselves the best chance to win the American League Central. And when something is on Rocky's mind to do, it is scary for every team involved, especially the Cleveland Indians. Elsewhere in the division, we're talking the Chicago White Sox. Very active recently. We had recent trades of Cody Ponce to Philly, Porter Curran to Atlanta, bringing in tons and tons and tons of prospects. They started the year 32-26, but just 12-18 over their last 30 games. Good, they're second in the American League in hits. Bad, they're 13th in runs scored, 13th in extra base hits, and 14th in home runs. They're getting on base, but they're not driving anyone in. That led, of course, to the recent trades of Juan Francisco and J.D. Martinez as well. Expect to see some high-end pitching prospects here moving forward. We have Jonathan Ware, 5-2, 2.19 ERA, 74 strikeouts, 16 walks, and 82 and a third at AAA. William Walker and his electric 100-mile-an-hour fastball over a K an inning, also at AAA. Dalton Jeffries. How about the already recently promoted Jorge Fernandez, who went 7 innings, struck out 8, gave up 3 runs in his debut against the Detroit Tigers. I think we're going to see the White Sox continue to be active. We're going to see them pursue a young bat. They've been looking for power. I think they go out and get it. They've reloaded. They have tons of pitching prospects to give up. I expect to see some sort of pitching prospect for hitting prospect trade from the White Sox. Next up, the Detroit Tigers, where I think we have one thing and one thing only really to talk about. That's Josh Johnson. They're willing to retain the complete contract. His FIP on the year is 3.34 in nearly 120 innings. Right-handed batters are hitting just 215 in 195 at-bats. On the road, away from, is it Comerica still? Wherever the Tigers play their games these days. Away from home, Johnson's 5-2 with a 2.14 ERA in nearly 60 innings pitched. 8 career playoff starts, ERA under 3. We're talking a valuable piece here, and a piece, while expensive, they're willing to retain it all. Again, we're talking Toronto. We're talking LA, either the Dodgers or the Angels. I don't think Seattle's interested. Could Minnesota be interested? While Atlanta's shopping Mark Appel, could they be then willing to bring in Josh Johnson if they were to keep Mark Appel? I don't know. And if Johnson's moved, which I'm hearing he's going to be gone by the weekend, could Joey Votto be moved? A perfect fit for the Cleveland Indians. I'm just feeling something's going to happen here with Josh Johnson soon. Another team I think we can't cut out is the third place team in the American League West, the Texas Rangers. Elite offense, struggling pitching, which we'll get to in a little bit. Along with Johnson and Joey Votto, Brad Brosh. Hot commodity, I feel like, for a bullpen arm. 33 years old, due to make just over $3 million. He's effective versus righties and lefties. We're going to see something out of Detroit sooner rather than later, and I look forward to seeing it. Kansas City, first-year GM Rob Chapman, organization that won 92 games last year. It's a different Royals team. Season began with the struggles of Gary Sanchez, continued with his lackluster play, and lackluster play all over the field. Recently, of course, trading, as we talked about, Real Muto and McNeil for Frank Burt. Burke, terrific intangibles, ability to hit the ball all over the field. One thing that is interesting, though, with Burt. At Fenway Park this year, Frank Burt was hitting 388 in 116 home at-bats. On the road, he was hitting 209 in 150 at-bats. Can Frank Burt figure out how to hit away from his old home park in Fenway Park. That'll be interesting. The next wave of Royal talent, I think it's coming sooner than I think some of us expect. Outfielder Bernard Blanchard. Outfielder Sergio Pagan, acquired in Cincinnati via the salary dump of Brandon Short. Pitchers Casey Mize. Pitcher Matt Long. Pitcher Jason Neal. That's 5 players that are at AAA that can contribute, and contribute at a decent clip here for Kansas City sooner rather than later. There's not a ton to move. Already moved the centerpiece, of course, in Gary Sanchez, but keep an eye on these 3. Jason Hayward, if they're willing to retain a decent amount of salary. James Paxton and John Ballard, I think, are 3 players that teams are going to inquire often from Kansas City here over the next few weeks. Moving on to the American League West, where I think it's the same old, same old. The Angels lead 4.5 games on the Seattle Mariners, both in the playoff position at the moment. Another year that happening. Another year the Texas Rangers being right there. Every year Kevin Gabbry is competing with Matt Eisenberg and Justin Kaiser, doing all that it takes to get to the top of the American League West. Right behind Texas this year is Matt Wells and the Houston Astros. I think everyone saw it coming, whether it was this year or next. I think people weren't quite sure, but the prospects were there, and the prospects are now up at the big league squad, and the Astros are 47 and 43. The Oakland A's a feisty 39 and 52. Beginning at the top of the American League West, though, let's talk about the Angels here for a minute. First in team batting average, first in on-base percentage, first in slugging, first in hits, first in extra base hits, first in runs scored, elite bullpen, but they're not invincible, and they don't have the best record in the American League. Why? Because of their rotation. Do they have enough pitching in their rotation? They know what they're going to get out of the 1 and the 2. Copeland and Lyles, I think Matt Eisenberg, Rod Barajas have complete faith in. After that, do they have any faith in 3, 4, and 5? I don't know. Kyle Funkhauser, he's been terrific, but he was awful in April. Kevin Gossman, he gives up hits, but he works out of jams. He's coming off of an injury. Can the Angels trust him? Brandon Morrow, wildly inconsistent, throwing under 90 miles an hour these days for the Angels. Will they go out and get a starting pitcher? They're at a great disadvantage in their rotation against all the other quality teams in the American League. The Angels have firepower, but they're always reluctant to give it up. I've heard that they have long been after Mark Appel. I know they've always valued Josh Johnson. Is it going to be a fight to who can acquire who first between them and Texas, them and Toronto, them and Seattle, them and Cleveland, them and Minnesota? I would be surprised if the Angels aren't involved. I would keep an eye on them there. The next 2 weeks are going to be telling at the top of the American League West. The Mariners and the Angels have 2 series coming up quickly after the All-Star break, and then they don't play again. The Angels and Mariners finish up their season series on July 21st. Things will be interesting from that point forward, moving to the rest of the year. Of course, the second place team in the American League West is, as I mentioned, the Seattle Mariners. The American League's best bullpen ERA is paired with the American League's third best starters ERA. We're talking about Danny Holtzen. Sure, he's pitched 2 bad starts here in the last couple of weeks. The Cy Young's still his to lose. Justin Hooper, he's been terrific in his first full year in the bigs. 10-7, 3.07 ERA, 138 punch-outs, and 118 innings pitched. He has given up 15 home runs so far this year. Hold on 1 second. We'll get to that after. Kyle Cody could he be given another shot in the rotation or the bullpen? The big league level this year, he was 3-4 with a 5.88 ERA in 9 games started. Since being demoted, though, he was given 2 starts, 14 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 18 strikeouts, 1 punch-out. We're talking the deepest rotation at the big league level. We're talking quality arms. Cody could fit into a power relief arm, another starter, or a prime trade chip. They've already been aggressive this year. May 6th, they brought in Prince Fielder. It's worked. 18 homers in 59 games. They were a team that was looking for power, and they got it. A couple of weeks later, May 24th, they brought in Pablo Sandoval. Mixed results so far. Will they bring in another bat? And I ask, will they bring in another bat, because They have one question mark. And the bat they could bring in could be from within, and could be from within someone who's already in the lineup. We're talking Mark Baker. A year after hitting .293 with an on-base percentage of .364 and a slugging percentage of .465, Baker's hitting a mere .239 with an on-base percentage of .306. He found his stroke in May, but he's just 32 of 133, a .240 average in June and July. We know Justin Kaiser's going to be aggressive. And in terms of being aggressive, we know the Texas Rangers and Kevin Gabriel are going to be really aggressive. We saw it just a week or so ago when they brought in Addison Reed and Ryan Braun from Milwaukee in a trade that included high-end prospects Mason Engler, Nick McDermott, and Durbin Feltman. There's one big problem for the Texas Rangers here. They have the American League's worst bullpen. Their starters, they have the 8th best starters ERA. They're saved by a terrific offense. I can't say it enough. Josh Johnson, Mark Appel, another team that I think is right there. They have near major league level ready prospects in the outfield. They could be attractive pieces for either Detroit or Atlanta. Houston Astros. 2 years ago, it was 2017. They won 54 games on the season. Again, they already have 47 wins. 54 in 2017, 70 in 2018. We're going over 500 this year in Houston. The bright future is here. GM Matt Wells has in position not just to finish over 500, but they could make the playoffs. The wow moment of the year still belongs to the Astros, the acquisition of Jose Gonzalez from Milwaukee. I think the biggest, not surprise, but growth in the league this year, it comes from the bat of Edgardo Arredondo, working with hitting coach and former power hitting extraordinaire Ryan Howard. Last year, Edgardo Arredondo hit a homer every 23 and a half plate appearances. This year, down to every 11.4 plate appearances. Cut that number in half. He is the premier power bat in baseball. If the Astros decide to become sellers, they have numerous bullpen pieces that could be highly attractive to any contender, beginning with John O'Quinn. Lockdown option against right-handed batters. Even with all the rookie debuts we've already had this year, we have more right on the way of Houston. We're talking Juan Davila. We're talking Luis Espinosa. We're talking Cody Chapman. They all have an itch to prove themselves at that big league level. Houston, one big trade already, sending 10 to Milwaukee. Could they have something up their sleeves again to be a team that makes some noise? Rounding out the American League, the Oakland A's, they started the year 10-21. Since then, they're 29-31. Remove a 2-13 record against the Rangers and Blue Jays. The A's are 37-39 at the break. That includes being 16-18 against the Angels, Mariners, and Astros. So while the overall record might not be where Oakland A fans want it to be, I don't think the Oakland A's are having quite as bad of a year as some are giving them discredit for, in a sense. Joe Mauer, he's hitting over 300. His on-base percentage is .380. He's thrown out 30 of 76 base stealers. Could he be a deadline acquisition? Could a team looking for a DH, a catcher, go after Joe Mauer? Elsewhere, Avery Barnes, he can play either outfield position, either corner outfield position. He could be a good bat off the bench, hitting .274, on base .363, slugging .404 with 5 homers against right-handed pitching. He's owed just over $4 million the rest of this season. I expect to see Jose Arredondo and Ike Davis moved. Both are cheap and effective options. They make any contender better. If a pitcher is moved, could we see the A's top pitching prospect Ben Landoni get time at the big league level? Another question moving forward, manager Bob Warner. His contract expires at the end of the season. Will he be retained? Again, 10-21 start to the year, 29-31 since. They're 37-39 against anyone not named Texas and Toronto. The Oakland A's aren't that bad, and they will give any American League team fits the rest of the way. That's the American League. We'll get to predictions on that later, but let's shift over to the National League and the National League East, where the Atlanta Braves sit on top of the National League East again, 51-41, 4-game lead on the Miami Marlins at 45-43. Tie for third place between the Mets and Nationals, both at 45-45 after 90. And the Philadelphia Phillies bring up the rear at 43-48, 7.5 out. Atlanta. We've had grumblings of unhappiness throughout the Braves organization pretty much all season long. Late May, the team traded Pablo Sandoval to Seattle to open up a spot for Marvin Grund, the young third baseman. Grund, he's been terrific. First 38 games of his big league career, he's hitting 320, drove in 25, he scored 25. He's been everything Atlanta expected him to be. The trade of Pablo Sandoval made perfect sense. So why is everything still panicking in Atlanta? They're 35-27 since May 1st. But the last 2 weeks of the first half were dreadful. They won just 6 of their final 17 games prior to the All-Star break. That's the panic that we've been seeing in Atlanta. They're sitting 4 games on top of the division, but what will we see them do? And I think the million-dollar question is Mark Appel. He's 10-4, ERA 3.23, FIP at 2.44, strikes out over 8.5 batters per 9 innings, 3-1 with an ERA under 3 in 7 career postseason starts. He's everything the Braves need, but he's also a pending free agent. They already locked up Trevor Bauer long-term. They need to lock up Armando Cabana soon. What are they going to do? While I would be shocked if he were traded to a National League team, the Braves are lucky in that the weakness of basically every American League contender not named Seattle, that weakness is in the rotation. If the Braves choose to move Appel, they will be able to bring in quite the haul for him. And if they do, they've already kind of built up a backstop, and that's their recent acquisition of Porter Curran from the White Sox. So again, keep an eye on Appel, keep an eye on the Braves. I don't think we know what's going to happen, but something there's going to happen. Something will happen. My money is that Appel is dealt. Second place, the Miami Marlins. The Marlins have finished above 500 just 3 times in the franchise's MLB Pro history. After winning just 66 and 72 games the past 2 seasons, Miami is positioned to finish above 500 this year. Walker Buehler, Lance McCullers, and rookie Alex Watts have all been tremendous. Watts was a top 20 prospect by MLB Pro experts prior to this season, and he's delivered. He was a 2014 top 10 pick of the Brewers out of West Bridgewater High School in West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. He's 6-3 with an ERA of 2.79 and 93 and 2/3 innings pitched. 11 of his 14 starts, they've been quality starts. So the rookie has delivered. With the emergence of Watts, with Dane Greer and Randall Pena not far off, could Miami cash in and move someone like John Lamb? Again, we already talked McCullers, we talked Buehler, we add in Watts, we add in these new prospects. John Lamb. He performed well in a half season with Miami last year, but he struggled this year. He surrendered 105 hits in just over 90 innings pitched, with both righties and lefties hitting above 290 against him. Opponents are hitting 335 on balls in play against Lamb. This is over 30 points higher than his career average. Is it bad luck, or is there something more to it? Depending on how July plays out, Miami could also move the likes of Vinny Pastano, Stephen Vaught, and Brandon Guyer. If Miami can get through July within contact of the Braves, mid-August will be crucial. Miami has a 13-game stretch in mid-August where they play the Braves twice, the Dodgers, and the Rockies. 3 of the best teams in the National League. Schedule is not easy for Miami, but the pitching is talented enough to keep them in it. Moving on, the National League's premier franchise is in danger of finishing below 500 for the first time. Go back to 2013 for a second. Since then, the Mets have won 101, 99, 92, 91, 95, and 93 games. They sit again at just 45 and 45 through 90 this year. After hitting 267 as a team last year, the Mets are hitting 247 this year. That ranks 10th among National League teams. The Mets rank 10th in runs scored, 13th in extra base hits. After winning National League MVP last year, Josh Wilcox has fallen back to earth. Last year, Wilcox's average on balls in play was 338. This year, 259. Wilcox's walk rate has risen 4 percentage points, and he's cut his strikeout rate. A bit of luck could be all Josh Wilcox needs to help carry the Mets into in the second half of the season. Like Wilcox, Matt Den Decker has seen his luck dramatically change. A year after hitting 365 on balls in play, Den Decker is hitting just 237 on balls in play this year. Not only is that down from last year, it's some 80 points lower than his career average. Den Decker's misfortunes has seemingly gotten the best of him as he's now swinging more and more, and his strikeout rate is higher than it's ever been in the past. But if Wilcox and Den Decker are able to get the ball in play and away from defenders, this 45-45 Mets team could make a run and could make a run fast. They continue to play elite defense. They continue to pitch at a very high level. Will they be buyers? Will they be sellers at the deadline? I don't know. Couple guys I would keep an eye on. What about Max Scherzer? Scherzer's taken a new role in the bullpen with enthusiasm, and it's showing with great success. In addition, Bobby Parnell and Matt Luck have had some bad luck and some misfortunes this year. Could they be key additions to a team looking for pitching and maybe not looking to pay top dollar for pitching? Again, tied with the Mets this year is the Washington Nationals with a MLB Pro history winning percentage as a franchise of 49.9%. They're at 50% this year. They're right where they always are. They're only 5 games out, though, of the East. After a dreadful 10-18 start to the year, the Nats are 35-27 since. But they're two different teams. They're two different teams whether they're playing at home or on the road. They're 13 games above 500 at home. They're 13 games under 500 on the road. The team is hitting 28 points better at home and getting on base at a clip of 41 points higher at home than they are on the road. This is a team that is scoring 4.34 runs a game at home and 3.7 on the road. The struggles reach the mound as well, where Washington's team ERA rises from 2.9 at home to 3.69 on the road. It's a young rotation that has been tremendous much of the year, posting the NL's second-best team ERA. Ace Miguel Pineda has allowed 1 or fewer earned runs in 9 of his 18 starts. Pineda's strikeout rate has risen from 5.8 batters per 9 innings last year to a touch under 8 batters this year. He, of course, was a centerpiece in the 2015 trade of Steven Strasburg. He's now blossomed into a young star with the Nationals. The Nationals are a blend of some high-priced players and young talent still under control for numerous years. It leads to a question of, do they really have much to sell? Some names that I would keep an eye on here the next few weeks. Anthony Bass could be interesting. Bass has been terrific in the past for both the Padres and Nationals. This year, though, things haven't gone his way. He struck out batters at a career-high clip, though, but is allowing more than a hit an inning. 58 hits and 50 innings of relief. Scott Elbert is striking out over 11 batters per 9 while maintaining an ERA 2.43. Some limited action, only 33 and a third. He could be a valuable addition. And I think one other name we could see move given a new chance. Carlos Moncrief, the power hitting outfielder of Washington, formerly of Tampa Bay. Is he going to be moved? Rounding out the NL East, we have the Philadelphia Phillies, the team's most active team through the first month of the season. In his first season in the city of brotherly love, Jack Beckman has been busy. They added Cody Ponce. They added Garrett Cole. They added Matthew Spalding. They added Juan Francisco. They added Josh Bell. They've been busy. Since June 1st, best record in the American League East, the Philadelphia Phillies. They're one of 3 teams since June 1st in the National League with 20 or more wins. Japanese sensation Ryobi Kamita has had a breakout year for the Phillies after hitting just 267 and 31 homers as a rookie last year. The 25-year-old two-time All-Star first baseman has already hit 24 homers, while raising his average to 322 and maintaining an on-base percentage above 400. To me, the Phillies could be very, very similar to the 2018 Tampa Bay Rays at the deadline. It might be too tough to catch up this year, but this is a team that could position themselves tremendously for 2019. You already have Sean Gilmartin. They already have Pedro Magana. They already have Cody Ponce. They already have Garrett Cole. A legitimate 1 through 4 in the rotation. Back into the bullpen, superb. Juan Ibarra and Sean Tollison. In order to be contenders next season, I think the Phillies must upgrade their outfield. They have young pitching prospects John Hawkins and Jose Padilla. I think they could be packaged together to bring in a big bat that make the Phillies contenders for next year. Of course, Philly talk radio thinks they should have been the best team all year. Had Jack Beckman been there all season long, Philly thinks they're the team to beat. So it'll be interesting to see how the National League East plays out. Philly's the hottest team, the Braves the best team, and a whole lot in the middle. Over in the Central, it's the St. Louis Cardinals division. It's the St. Louis Cardinals division to lose, it seems. Cardinals the largest lead in baseball, 7.5 games, 55-34, 7.5 game lead on the Reds at 47-41. And then we have their traditional rest of the NL Central, the Brewers, Pirates, and Cubs, all under 500. St. Louis, as I just pointed out, best record, right? The best record in the National League, yes. And the largest lead in baseball. They've dominated teams at Busch Stadium, going 30-13. They have the NL's best team ERA. They basically lead in every pitching category. And as great as the pitching is, and it is, the Cardinals' offense is anything but. While they rank 6th in runs scored, they are among the bottom 5 in batting average, on-base percentage, extra base hits, strikeouts, and stolen base. A year after hitting .325 with an on-base percentage of .380, Christian Yelich is hitting .248 with an on-base percentage of .296, I believe. I think I wrote that down wrong, so I hope it's .296. The MLB Pro walking Evan Longoria, he's seen his on-base clip drop 70 points from last season, and it is sitting 60 points below his career average. Is Longoria slowing down? The Cardinals are 20-13 against the division, but 35-21 against everyone else. They are more than a byproduct of a weak NL Central. No team in baseball has an easier schedule the rest of the way. If the Cardinals can maintain the best record of the National League, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, where they are dominant at home, with the rotation that they have, with the bullpen that they have, I think it's fair to say they're the team to beat in the National League. We're going to get to the rest of the National League and the elite NL West here in a minute. But the Cardinals have everything on paper pitching-wise. If they can add a bat, or if Yelich, or if Cedric Rutherford, if they can figure something out offensively, this is the team to beat in the National League. That said, since May 1st, it is the Reds and not the Cardinals who not only have the best record in the NL Central, but the best record in the National League. Again, since May 1st, the Cincinnati Reds have the best record in the National League. Since being acquired in the Nolan Arenado trade on June 9th, Lance Ray leads the National League with nine home runs. Since the trade of Arenado on June 9th, the Reds' David Chester leads all NL players with 50 or more at-bats in batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. Since the trade of Nolan Arenado on June 9th, the Reds as a team have hit 41 homers in 23 games. That's 11 more homers than the NL's second most homers hit by a team, the Colorado Rockies. The Reds are scoring 4.52 runs per game since the trade of Arenado. With Nolan, the Reds were scoring just 3.86 runs per game. We're talking a Reds team that has recently added J.D. Martinez via the White Sox. In addition to adding Martinez, we're looking at a Cincinnati team that's getting ready to add Chris Sale back to the rotation. Sale last pitched in a big league game in 2017. He missed all of 2018 with an elbow injury and was sidelined parts of 2019 with a bad back. The Reds have proven they can win without Sale. Might they be willing to test that further by trading Sale and filling other holes? Earlier today, we were hearing that rumor be shot down, but I don't buy it if good offers come in. I could see Sale's name being dealt. Elsewhere, how about Joel Hanrahan? His option for 2020, it's not going to vest. He could be an attractive piece for a team looking to add to the bullpen. If the Reds fall behind much more than the 7.5 they already trail, and the wild card, what they sit 5 games out, Joel Hanrahan could be a piece that brings them a hefty return. So the Reds are great since May 1st. How about May 25th, the first day of the post-Esteban Hernandez, Jose Gonzalez era of the Milwaukee Brewers? Did anyone else realize the Brew Crew are 20-19? Again, since both Hernandez and Gonzalez have been dealt, the Brewers have a winning record. While offensively, only the Pirates have scored fewer runs than the Brewers in the National League during that stretch, the Brewers have surrendered the third fewest runs among any NL team during that stretch, only trailing the Nationals and the Brewers. We're now talking an elite farm system in Milwaukee. Without a ton of tradable assets at this point in time, do they look to even make that young farm system deeper by trading Shelby Miller? 28-year-old righty is in the middle of a career year. He's 8-6 with an ERA 2.33. His control has improved. He has a 3-pitch arsenal headlined by a nasty curveball. He fools lefties. He fools righties. He's signed through 2022 at a reasonable $10 million a year. Will the Brewers use Miller as a veteran leader for the upcoming youth movement, or do they capitalize now? Unlike Josh Johnson, who is old, unlike Mark Appel, who is a free agent at the end of the year, unlike Chris Sale, who's coming off of a major injury, Shelby Miller's young, he's signed, and he's durable. The haul could be massive for Shelby Miller. Pittsburgh Pirates, battle for the top pick. I think that's all we can say. The battle for the top pick begins here with Pittsburgh. They're 9-24. 9-24 since June 1st. They're a power hitting team that still ranks last in nearly every category outside of home runs. Alex Bregman, he's been steady. Charles Tilson has taken over playing time from Michael Conforto in right field. Is Conforto available? Has Conforto fallen out of favor with the new front office, or is it just a matter of time spreading out playing time? If Conforto is available, though. Prime target for anyone looking for a bat. Average outfielder, he can play either left field or right field, can hit. A piece that I think would be attractive if he's in fact available. The one guy who is available from Pittsburgh, who I think could also net return it. Earlier we talked about Joe Mauer behind the plate. How about Carlos Romero? Almost assuredly going to be moved. Veteran free agent to be, plays average defense behind the plate, traditionally has power. Backup catcher, if there's a catcher injury, Carlos Romero, valuable piece. Chicago Cubs, worst record in MLB Pro belongs to the Cubs. Ever since the teardown of the following the 2017 season, things have not been kind to Justin Jabs and Cubs fans. The Cubs are an abysmal 8-37 on the road and easily have put together the worst collection of pitching talent at the big league level that this league has seen. It's bad. Madison Bumgarner, he was given a big contract beginning of the year to spearhead change in Chicago. Bumgarner insisted on coming to Chicago and said he's been a part of the problem. His career worst 5.64 ERA en route to his 3-10 record. Bumgarner approached GM Justin Jabs for a trade about a month ago. Jabs told Bumgarner to shut up and pitch. Chicago Cubs owner Laura Ricketts has a ton of faith in Justin Jabs, and she is unequivocally committed to Jabs. Unfortunately for Ricketts and Jabs, there are a few on the field that they want to commit to. There is one blessing for Cubs fans this year. They're actually halfway decent at home. They're fooling Wrigley Field and Chicago Cubs fans to the tune of nearly 24,000 fans a game to watch this abysmal team play baseball. Unless the Cubs change course, though, I don't know what they're going to do. They have two valuable assets, Jose Felix, Mark Sorensen. Justin Jabs has insisted they're going to be Cubs for life. Will he change that? If not, well, either way, Cubs, they're your favorite to pick first in the 2020 MLB Pro Draft. Final division of the day, the NL West, the premier division in the National League. We have the Rockies, 1.5 games up on the Giants and Dodgers. Then we have the Padres and D-backs, 17.5, 18 games out. We're going to start in Colorado, though. They got off to a blistering 48-22 record through the team's first 60 games. Since then, they're just a game over 500, 25-24. During the first 60, they were averaging 5.8 runs per game. Since then, 4.12. The Rockies are 21-21 against the NL West, but they're 34-15 against everyone else. They have the second worst defensive efficiency, and that's played a role in the Rockies allowing the second most hits in the National League. Offensively, they're still the best in the National League. They rank first in batting average, first in on-base percentage, first in slugging, first in hits, first in runs, and first in extra base hits. The Rockies recently acquired standout relief pitcher Nick McCauley from Kansas City in an attempt to bolster the bullpen. The Rockies, they're an interesting team moving forward. When they lead after the first inning, they're 26-7 on the year. But if they finish the first inning trailing or tied, they're just 29-29. Against playoff caliber pitching, the Rockies will need much more than this potent offense. They're not going to necessarily jump out to early leads against Kershaw, Bauer, Appel, McCuller, Matz, Lincecum, Greinke, Gabe Guerrero, Parker Markle, Cozart, or anyone in the American League. Right behind him, San Francisco Giants, the Battle of the Buckles, the family rivalry, the rivalry that gets the most attention in the league outside of Cleveland and Minnesota. Ryan's Giants sit 1.5 games behind the Rockies here at the break. Like the Rockies, they're built on great hitting and, frankly, mediocre pitching. The Giants limped into the break, losing 6 of their final 9 games. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's a team with the resurgence of Bob Carlisle that has created a logjam in the outfield, and as a result, a defense that's all over the place. We have Eloy Jimenez playing first base for, frankly, the first time in his career. We have Buster Posey now playing third base. Is this going to work long term? I don't see how it can work into next season. With a core group of players all north of 30, I expect this team to be buyers, but could they sell one of these players to make room? Another team, I've said it often, I'll say it again, Josh Johnson, Mark Appel, fits in perfectly. Appel at a rental price, you slot him in with Lincecum and Greinke, perfect. This is the team he makes the most sense in the National League if Atlanta's willing to trade him to the National League. The Dodgers, how about the team that's already made a move? It's the Dodgers. They brought in Lucio Cruzado, Mark Rzycki, and Kenneth McDowell. Cruzado joins Markle, he joins Cozart, he joins Gabriel Guerrero, he joins Jeffrey McIntosh, he joins Yu Darvish to form the deepest rotation of the National League that's not even close. The bullpen is among the best in the National League and only gets deeper with Rzycki and McDowell. Since June 1st, no team has a better record than the Dodgers across either league. The Dodgers have a run differential of plus 41 over that time, which is 25 runs better than any other team in the National League West. Over that time, since June 1st, Jeffrey Moore and Juan Hidalgo have combined to hit 13 homers and drive in 43 runs. After a slow April in which Nick Plummer hit just 243 and reached base at a clip of 316, he hit 284 with an on-base percentage of 358 in May and June. After the recent move, did the Dodgers do more? How about the Padres? 88 wins 2 years ago, 86 wins last year. Let me read that again. 88 wins 2 years ago, 86 wins last. 88 2 years ago, 86 this past season. There we go. But then what happened? Well, of course, there was the Giancarlo Stanton trade. We saw that. That was going to be a problem in San Diego, but I don't think we saw it coming this much. They were 9-18 in May. That was a killer. In May, the Padres had a run differential of negative 45. Again, 9-18 in May, negative 45 run differential. Things were bad. Despite having 4 starting pitchers with an ERA of under 4, we're talking Michael Matula, Broderick Wilson, Arturo Matlis Garcia, and Abel De Los Santos, the Padres as a team ranked 11th in starters ERA and 14th in bullpen ERA. They're an unlucky 8-15 in one-run games. While teams have inquired on Matula and Wilson, the Padres have remained firm and consistent in telling them no. I do expect to see Brad Peacock ship before the deadline. He was acquired along with the bad contract of Mike Montgomery. Peacock possesses value and could be a hot commodity. Another name that I think could be on the move, Esteban Hernandez. We had the trade of Esteban Hernandez earlier. A player that isn't quite on the level of Esteban Hernandez, I'm not saying he is, but Ryan Nash is a tremendous leadoff hitter, and he could command a boatload of high-quality prospects for the San Diego Padres. The final team I want to touch on, the final team in the league between the two leagues, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They made headlines this offseason in bringing in Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani's been great, on the mound at least. As a rookie pitcher, he's 7-5 with an ERA of 3.5 in 17 starts. He struck out just under 10 batters per 9 innings. Unfortunately, he was a two-way player, and he isn't really hitting. He has 7 homers in 58 games, but he's hitting under 200. Some in the front office are suggesting that there is a fight to send him down to AAA to let him hit full-time. It will be interesting to see if they let it happen. We said the Padres were bad in one-run games. The Diamondbacks have been worse. 28 one-run games, they've lost 18. 10 and 18 in one-run games. It has been tough in Arizona. Andrew Morales has taken a moderate step forward, but Bill Hawk has taken a small step back. Still, Morales, Hawk, Ohtani, Scott Clark, young core that's going to be loaded in 2020. Offensively, while his power's not down, Rich Dixon is becoming a more complete hitter. Jeremy Scott, he's been fantastic in his first 40 games at the big league level. Vlad Guerrero Jr. now at AAA. Juan Marin at AAA. Pitchers Jeffrey Stone, Carl Deere, they're not far off. Just how close is Arizona to breaking through? This team is loaded, especially the combo of trio of Scott, Guerrero, and Juan Marin. In many ways, they're similar to the Houston Astros. Can they sneak a young star for some of these prospects along the way? It'll be interesting. The last thing I wanted to touch on here tonight, and I apologize to Matt for running longer than I told him I was, especially with him being on a schedule. Did I see our sim will be delayed a little bit? Anyways, the last thing I wanted to touch on was what you guys sent me here recently when I asked for predictions the rest of the way. The ALCS, the Angels were a unanimous pick by everyone who submitted a ballot not only to be in the ALCS, but also to represent the American League in the World Series. Every ballot had the Angels in the World Series. The Blue Jays were heavily picked by everyone else as well, with a few having the Seattle Mariners, but almost everyone suggested it's the Angels and Blue Jays to battle in the American League Championship Series. Over in the National League, everyone who submitted a ballot again picked the Colorado Rockies. After that, though, we had three teams garner quite a bit of support: Atlanta, St. Louis, and San Francisco. They were all picked. The most popular NLCS champions were the Cardinals and Rockies, with one person supporting the Atlanta Braves. What was interesting was more than half of you thought the National League would win their first World Series this year. I'm not ready to predict that, but it will be interesting to see the rest of the way. And with that, that's your first half of the MLB Pro season. Again, thank you to everyone who has contributed in my place here as I've taken a break from podcasting, but I hope to be back here, especially in July with the trade deadline. So any rumors, send them my way. Any stories, send them my way. If I'm unable to cover them, I will gladly pass them on to Brenton, to Matt Wells, to Cole, to anyone else who's interested in podcasting. Thank you guys for listening. That's been another MLB Pro Happy Hour, and I look forward to discussing everything with you again here in the near future. Thanks, guys.